Okay. I am getting myself all set up here. God, I got a lot of stuff in my pockets. Jeez. Jesus Maria. I have a ton of stuff in my pockets. Jesus Maria, do I ever have a ton of stuff in my pockets? Jesus Maria. Hey, Roadhog Kennel. I'm going to be talking here shortly. I'm running my live. I'm just getting everything all set up here. I should be ready to go in a matter of minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to be playing a little bit of music here. One of my newer songs. I think you actually are one of the few people who've actually been there to that golf video and seen or listened to the song. Was that you? Was that you that went there and did that? If so, I thank you very much. Come on, pair with the device now. Okay, JBL Clip 4. Okay, there we go. I don't know why it's so difficult. I don't know why it's always got to be so difficult. Okay, so you've already heard this. This is a pretty good... What'd you think of that song? Okay, so I'll just tell you. It's the same song that's on the... that video that says clips of myself and Chili dealing with filthy farm animals or being forced to interact with filthy farm animals. It's the same song, but those are two different versions of it. Have you heard them both, and which one do you like better? If so, did you like that one off that golf game? This song right here is called Bad Mantis, actually. But that's not what I wanted to play, is it? It's a good song, though. So surreal. The newer version is your preference? Okay. Little pet alien, stabby. It's definitely a harder version. Much, you know, as far as rock goes, it's a lot harder rock. I actually honestly preferred the other one, but I am willing to, I don't know, they're both pretty good, and I was willing to listen to what people had to say. So your vote's going to definitely count, because I doubt I'm going to ask all that many people what they think of it. I'm also old as dirt. I'm 49, so I don't know. Is that old as dirt? How old are you? How old is old as dirt to you? Maybe you don't want to say, but here we go. This is it. Now they're for violating. Where I'm going? Why the fuck do you want to be knowing? Wait, do you think we on some kind of date? No, we're not on no kind of date. So this sounds more like Kiss and AC/DC a little bit, leaning stuff like you like, probably. I'm more of an Alice in Chains sponge type of guy. Fuck you pigs. Ooh. It's a danger just to go out. Ooh, driving. Alright, okay. Ooh. I'm just taking a puff or two and listening to the song, and we'll get going. Mr. Osgood, hey buddy. I met with Mr. Osgood, and we talked about a number of different things, and it was a good conversation. Great guy, definitely, obviously a great guy. He's been mistreated by the blue poo piggies, just as most of us have, I think, in this group. It's unfortunate. It's sad to hear all these different stories. What's happening to Mr. Bones is just a straight up crime. He's got a public defender that's not working for his interest. She has a winning case in her hands where the cop actually quit his job over the incident because he didn't want to push forward with the charges, refuses to come. What the fuck?
What are you doing?
Oh, I thought you were a stranger. So, okay. I was about to freak out. Anyways, yeah. Yeah, likewise for you, Mr. Osgood, I know. Your story is unfortunate as well. I don't know why. Well, I guess I do know why. For money. That's why the U.S. government has picked up this habit of doing this to its citizens. It's insane. People around the world, they're looking at us and just laughing and going, what is wrong with you all that you're supposed to be land of the free, home of the brave, and you allow this stuff? Hey, Chillin' Charlie. Chillin' Charlie, chill. Good to see you, buddy. I'm getting ready to go and talk about Relic Hominins here. Just taking a quick couple puffs, playing a little bit of my own bomb-ass music that I made. If you haven't heard this, it's on the Iceland Hole 16 par 5 Albatross video, but it's the only place you can hear it. But even if you're not interested in the golf game, that's only just a minute or two of it at the beginning. So if you want to hear it, if it sounds good, go there to hear it. And I'm going to be walking and talking in a minute about Relic Hominins again and the myth of human evolution. Hopefully all of you out there are, if you have a little something to partake of before we get going, just to get your brain in that mode. Hopefully you're taking advantage of that. I can't find my runts, unfortunately, so I'm having to go with some dog poop and lemon royale, which that's fine. The runts is what really gets you like. No. I don't know who's talking to me from the other side of the fence out here. Filthy animals. Alright, I'm going to play another song here, and then once that's over, we'll get our boats moving. What else should I play? How about Chevy? I don't know. I always like I Married a Pigtail. Or just a Yogi is good too. Here, I'll play the other version of Filthy Animals and see which one you like. Hey, Ludum. Good to see you, buddy. Love you long time. DLZ is live. I know he is. He's almost got to be done, though. And I don't care, really. If you want to listen to more of that, that's fine. I understand. I'm going to be talking about Relic Hominins here in a minute. I'm just getting myself plant medicine going, you know, for aches and pains that I'll be feeling while I walk. And I'm going to try to walk slower. I'm going to make an effort at Kinetics Customs suggestion. I'm going to try to walk slower, keep the camera picture clearer. He's sending me a gimbal in the mail. Okay, cool, yeah, good. Get your mind in that plant medicine place. I'm just about ready. I'm 95% there.
God damn it, you work for me. Okay, so shut your mouth.
See, on this version, I have clips of my interaction with the cops.
No, you're out here. You're out.
And one of these days soon, I'm going to have a live stream where I talk about this incident. But not today.
You are a sick person. Okay, you're economically carrying me. You threatened me with arrest. I wasn't committing a crime. And you come up acting like a thug criminal.
Thug criminals. They're thug criminals.
And you're being respectful and nice to me. You're a sick person. You're a real sick person. Boy, you got wow. And it's all going to be, this is on the internet forever.
One of these days I have to do this. Am I a lefty agitator?
As well they should.
What exactly is a lefty agitator? I'm a 2A rights advocate, but I'm an all rights advocate.
Okay.
First Amendment as well, so that would be maybe what you would consider an agitator if you think that people who stand up for their First Amendment rights or Second Amendment rights is an agitator. I don't know.
And look at how long did it take 25 minutes to write a stepping in the street ticket or whatever kind of nonsense this is? Who does that? Who wants to come up on something?
So I'm not sure what a lefty agitator is. I don't believe in this, you know, transgender. I think that transgender is a mental disease for most people. There may be a few of them who, oh, hey, there's USA Inc. There may be a few of them who have, maybe but this whole born in the wrong body thing, like that's in most cases, that's something that people were convinced of. That it's very unfortunate that they would then take surgical alteration for that. So yeah, I'm definitely not on the left in a lot of ways. I am a leftist in some ways. I don't like the cops. Nobody here, I think, Charlie, you're going to find likes the cops. They are completely out of control. They are the biggest criminal organization in the nation. So if that makes me a lefty to understand that, then I'll take guilty as charged on that. But yeah. And I think that we need more people that are quote agitators out there, It's because without cameras, we weren't able to flex our rights for so long because the cops are just allowed to come into court and lie. And so now with cameras, we have more of an opportunity to do that and try to take back some, because you couldn't exercise your rights in this country before cameras. Even if you had a whole lot of witnesses as to what happened, you still were going to probably lose against a single cop's word. And that's just a crime. That's criminal. So, I don't know. Maybe I am a lefty instigator. Have you left here or there? I'm not trying to get down on you, Charlie, at all. Okay, good. I'm glad you're still here. I just wanted to see. I'm just trying to get like more of your perspective on things. Yeah, I don't agree with ICE. That's for darn sure. All this is they are normalizing hatred-fueled, masked police, standing army among us. This is what the brown shirts did right before World War II. I mean, come on. They're just following the playbook perfectly. Oh, wow. Well, more power to you if you agree with ICE. I do not agree with it at all. I think that it's a horrifically unwise thing to allow. And where do you think the ICE is going to turn to when they're done with the, quote, illegal immigrants? They're still going to exist. The courts, all these new courts, they've doubled down on the prison industrial complex and the police state with this ICE thing. All these new courts are still going to exist. All these ICE officers are still going to be under contract. All these new jails and holding facilities and unconstitutional nonsense is still going to be there, built with employees working at it. They're not going to just let it sit there. So they're going to turn on us, Charlie. Next, they have to do something. Yeah. Anyways, hey, Everett Sanchez, Kevin Bierniarski. Well, I'm not agreed. I'm not at all. Yeah, exactly. Biden set up Trump for the win. It's always planned. If you can find live streams where Life Under the Microscope and I were having conversations. This was before Trump even announced that he was going to run again. And Ludum and I were saying what's going on right now with Biden opening up the borders and inviting people in, and at the time it wasn't quite clear yet, but yeah, we knew that it was probably likely also importing people. But whatever the case, giving them incentives to come here. And we said that's just a setup so that whoever the next Republican candidate is can come in here and double down on the police state, on the prison. Because if you just had a candidate that was running for president, they're like, I want to double down on the prison industrial complex and the police that we have in this, they would never win, because there's too many people who are aware of what a horrific warmongering and warmongering against its own people country this has become, where we've got the greatest number of inmates by far of any country on the planet, and 85% of them created no victim. I don't know what percent, but something in the very high percent of them created no victim and don't have any business being anywhere near a cage. I used to say the same thing, Charlie, about a secure border. Even as being more of a liberal-leaning person in the past, true liberals believe in secure borders. Um, liberals are actually not, true liberals are not too far away from libertarians. I know that that's been lost, and the meaning of liberal has somewhat changed, and people that are labeled with it really don't fit that anymore. But the true old school liberals, they believe in all of our rights, and they do believe in secure borders. Because, but I am not so sure that I believe in that anymore. I mean, at the very least, at the very least, the Bill of Rights, all these rights that are in the Bill of Rights are God given, and they are God given to all men equally. It doesn't matter if you're born in the United States. It doesn't matter over some imaginary line on this side or that side of someone. That doesn't matter. So at the very least, it's criminal, and it's a violation of everything this country is supposed to stand for, to treat anyone and to violate their rights according to the Bill of Rights. It doesn't matter. We're not even supposed to be violating the rights of other people in other countries, let alone people that come here from other countries. No man, and all men, I mean, are created equal. All men, all human beings. It doesn't matter what side of an imaginary line you're born on. That's ridiculous. Of course, the Bill of Rights applies to all people, and of course, it's a crime to treat people like those rights don't apply to them. It's all human beings. It doesn't matter if you're born on Venus. It doesn't matter if you're born what's messed up now? Okay, let me see. No, they're not God given to the U.S. They're given to the world. They're given to all men. The founders were quite clear about that, Charlie. All men created equal. It's Charlie. It's not written. It doesn't say anything about all people in the United States. It is written exactly like what I'm saying. It says all men are created equal. All men are given these rights as part of their birthright by God or the universe at birth. All men. That is how it's written. It's not. It doesn't say anything about all people within certain borders or whatever. No, it was the founders were clear in their external writings outside the Constitution, and the way that it is worded, it does include all men. So that's just, I'm sorry, but that statement is just not true. It doesn't say, all men that are within the borders of the United States or anything like that. That's ridiculous. It could be somebody who's from Venus or somebody who's from outside the galaxy. It doesn't matter if you're born in another universe, a parallel universe, and you end up here somehow through some portal or something. You still have those same human rights. All humans are born with them. No, I don't have to interpret it my way. That's just, it says all men. How else do you interpret all men? I mean, there's really no other way to. It's all men. It doesn't mean anything. God doesn't. You think, how absurd, you think that the founders that believed in God said, oh, God's looking down and he's watching for which side of the line you're born on or whatever, and these human rights go to you if you're born within the United States, but not if you're born outside? No, the moral high ground that this country has is supposed to be that we view all men as having human rights, all humans as having human rights equally, and that we act accordingly. That's that's what our moral high ground in the world is. And another thing that many of the founders stressed over and over is that when we lose our moral high ground, that's when we lose everything. That's when we lose ourselves. That's when we lose it all. And so I don't really know how else to interpret all men, but I guess if you want to explain it a little further, maybe you're right. But I certainly have never seen anything that indicates that God-given, inalienable, inherent human rights have anything to do with borders. They're inherent. They're God-given. They're given at birth to everyone. I don't know. And of course, I'm here with this platform at the moment, and I'm able to just spew off, what I want, and you have to sit there and put things in the comments. Trust me, I'm cognizantly aware of that. I've been on your side of it, and I know it can be frustrating. And don't think that I'm trying to come down on you either. I mean, I'm interested in your point of view. I just don't see where I would like an explanation for how all men, inherent, inalienable human rights how that somehow gets translated differently to be all people born inside the lines of the border of the United States. Well, so do what about Puerto Ricans and I don't know, even Hawaiians? I wonder what you think about that. But definitely Puerto Ricans and Virgin Islanders and people like that. I wonder. Anyways, time to get back to Bigfoot hominin, unless Chillin' Charlie has something else. Oh, Howard's leg. Hey, buddy. Oh, you're already modded. Okay, it looked like you weren't for a second. The Declaration was the guiding document, or a guiding document, but the Constitution set the laws. And the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is also a set of laws, meaning, well, and you know, the Supremacy Clause points to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence by virtue of reference as being the highest law of the land that nullifies any laws, statutes, ordinances, codes, policies, behaviors. It even includes things like policies, behaviors. Well, that would definitely include judges' rulings. Nullifies anything. So, and the 10th Amendment, the very first line of the 10th Amendment starts out with a reiteration of the Supremacy Clause. So I don't know where all the confusion is. Yes, the states. No, the Constitution doesn't trump no federal law. I mean, no federal law does not trump state law automatically. However, what's in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence trumps any law, federal or state, and states are not allowed to make laws that violate that. I mean, there's no sane, rational way to argue that. And again, very first line of the 10th Amendment reiterates the Supremacy Clause. So I don't know where. I guess it's one of the most misunderstood parts of the Constitution. People have the mainstream interpretation is then that therefore federal law always trumps state law, and that's just not the case. Another channel I mod on is where I watch the MA races. Is a radiologist who want me to connect you to. Ryan, okay. Oh, hey, Brian Labs. I somehow missed you, I think, there. Okay, so about to talk about hominins again and human evolution. I was talking about last time. I was talking about things like savants and how, you know, we have this impossible seeming potential inside of us that can come out from a brain injury. And I talked about our domesticated animals and our genetic disorders and just a few of the weird things about our DNA, like the second and third base pairs being fused together in the way that they are, that allows them to still operate, but cuts our number of base pairs down from 48 to 46. And also the telomere caps that were placed on that fused pair is also what shortens our life from probably around 260 years to what it is, as well as blocks us. That's where the block is located. That blocks us from the potential that you can see come out in savants, the potential to play any music. This is what you can imagine the Anunnaki were like. They could play any instrument perfectly, picking it up the first time. They could do any math problem in their head. They could look at a masterpiece painting and one time and then recreate it perfectly without looking at it again, stroke for stroke. They could do all these things that savants can do. And you can too. If you could somehow remove these blocks that are there inside of you, your potential is godlike almost. All of ours is. And so I talked about all of that. Let's see, what's life saying? No harm and no film. I like the old test-ray X tubes. Okay, I see. I see. We're talking about things that are over my pay grade and intelligence level. That's fine though. So I talked about that. I talked about the genetic disorders and how our clearly gifted to us domesticated plants and animals are the only other creatures on the planet who have these genetic disorders because in nature, harsh as it is, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but harsh as it is, for for the good of the species and the survival of the species, a parent who has a child who is genetically defective will stomp it out and kill it, if not eat it. That's just reality. Um, because they don't want that kind of thing in the gene pool. Again, unless it's like albinism or something that's relatively harmless and isn't going to come back on future generations and ruin their existence. Okay, so and I've talked about how we appear on the planet looking nothing like anything that's come before us. Spectacularly different, impossibly different. I'm going to begin walking here. And then we drove the creatures that were living on the planet in the primary ecological niches, but also in the secondary ecological niches because they're built for it just fine. Here, I'm gonna, instead of my ugly face, I'll turn it around. There's the bus and the people walking to the park. Okay. Because we can only live in the primo ecological niches, and so these creatures just moved to those when we became so numerous that they stopped being able to hunt us and use us for breeding slaves, basically. Both things occurred, and that's one of the reasons why we have some of their DNA and Neanderthal DNA in us. Yeah, we became numerous enough. We don't allow threats in our vicinity, blah, blah, blah. I've talked about that multiple times. And so we drove them into these, and that's where they still live. And when you look at the fossil record, the so-called pre-human fossil record, while it doesn't match us, while there's not a single human bone in the entire so-called pre-human fossil record, what it does match is the videos and the photographs of these still living creatures who are clearly the true ancestors of the so-called prehumans. Or, maybe at the same time that we were altered, they were altered, but if so, they were given the same exact bone structure as the Homo heidelbergensis, Homo neanderthal, who, as I've already spoken about, Neanderthals still exist on the planet today. Of course they do. Of course they didn't go extinct. How could they when wolves and bears and cougars and literally infinitely inferior, indescribably inferior predator species still live on? It's absurd to think that these other much, indescribably superior species would go away. So anyways, they match the bone structures. These subjects that have been caught on these films, who I talked about the other day, they don't match any human who's ever showed up in a costume in a Hollywood movie. Chewbacca, Harry and the Hendersons, they all perfectly match the body ratios of a human, fit in there perfectly. Even with Chewbacca's arm extensions, that doesn't change things because it makes it so that his elbow doesn't bend naturally in the middle like all primates do, as well as humans. And it just doesn't throw the measurements off enough to fool the pDNA system. But what these subjects do match is the body ratios of a Neanderthal. When you take the bones, line it up, it's a perfect match. Just like it was a perfect match to the tracks found in the Caucasus Mountains of the species like Zana, who was the captured Neanderthal who lived as a slave in the village of Tikhina, Russia, and had children and grandchildren who are still alive. So yeah, these video and photo captures from years ago, many of them from years ago, going all the way back to 1967, and then for photographs even before that, they all have the exact body ratios of a Neanderthal or a Homo heidelbergensis or any of the various hominin species that we have fossil records for. And They match perfectly with all the body ratios going all the way back to, you know, there was a jump from, okay, at one point there was it appears there was two upright walking gorilla species, related species, and two upright walking chimpanzee species on the planet. This is what the fossil record is so far telling us. At one point that was the case, before any hominins. Then all of a sudden you have this major jump. It's as big of a leap as it was from the hominins to human. It's big and impossible of a leap. And so right there, it appears that's where they got their alteration. Now then you have a significant amount of time, millions and millions of years, where it's just the hominins before humans pop up 300,000 or 400,000 years ago. 300,000 or 400,000 years ago. And again, I've talked about, they might find a bone that they say is a million-year-old human or whatever, but we don't know if that's really a human or something that looks like a human. And also, maybe it's from a time traveler, or maybe it's from an alien, or maybe it's from, I don't know, but it's just, you can't really rely 100% on that kind of thing. And it just, all the other evidence says that we appeared here 300,000 or 400,000 years ago, somewhere in that range, maybe a little bit longer, just out of nowhere, looking nothing like anything that's come before us. And so going back in time, there was a jump much like that. A jump from these two upright walking gorilla species and two upright walking chimpanzee species. A jump from them to the hominins. And then all of a sudden you had all kinds of hominins popping up all over the planet. Almost as if, and again, it's as dramatic a jump that you can explain that kind of a change in that kind of a time period. I believe there was an intervention at that point, and the hominins were created from these upright walking chimpanzees and upright walking gorillas. And then you had hominins all over the planet. It's almost as if whoever made this alteration just kept on trying different things and making hominin after hominin species after hominin species. And of course, the Bible's version of this is the whole Nephilim story, and that the angels were making these abominations that were all over the planet, and so God had to send the flood. Now, in the Sumerian version, it's not a wooden boat that the Noah character, who I'm forgetting the name of, but Enki is the Anunnaki who, on multiple occasions, saved mankind from the whims of other Anunnaki to just simply wipe us all out at once because we caused some problems or other. Enki was in love with mankind. He or she saved us. He or she is the one that created us, and also he or she in the lab, according to the Sumerians, and also he or she saved us from being wiped out on multiple occasions. Now, when the flood happened, basically the Anunnaki took a vote, and at that time a great number of them were just fed up with humans. And this is the Sumerian version of the biblical story. They were fed up with the humans and the troubles that we were causing. And so they said, yeah, this has gotten out of control. First, they tried a virus, according to the story. This is pretty advanced stuff for the first people to supposedly invent writing, isn't it? First, they tried a virus. That didn't quite work. It mutated and fizzled out. Then they went ahead and they tried a few other, pretty barbaric ways of getting rid of us. They just decided that's just too gory and blah, blah, blah. So what we're going to do is just have the planet flood for a certain amount of time. And so the Ark was not, in that story, a wooden boat with two of every animal species and plant species on it or whatever, or in samples of plant species. It was a ship that was a flying ship that was a genetic data bank. that's not the words exactly that they use. However, the words they use are close enough translations to that, and the general idea is clearly that there was some kind of a repository of information of different species to bring back after the flood, and some kind of a machine on this ark that was able to then instantly recreate from these genetic samples and repopulate the planet. Now, the flood didn't quite work. It didn't wipe out obviously, all the hominins, as they are still all over the world except for Australia, and possibly not, who knows what's going on in Antarctica. I used to say Antarctica, but I finally realized I don't know what the F is going on there. So they're probably not there. Who knows though? Maybe they are. But on every major archipelago and every continent, with the exception of Australia, New Zealand, and that other, oh man, New Guinea, there. And they have their own species of bipedal creatures, but they are not hominins. There's never been hominin fossils found anywhere in New Guinea, Australia, or New Zealand. Never. Not one. And so they're not hominins. They are bipedal marsupials. And there are multiple species of them. They basically, the bipedal form is highly advantageous, highly powerful. Primates are extremely successful, they're the badasses of the neighborhood. Like I said before, they can take a lion and rip it to pieces, no problem. You know, everything except for humans, because we're just weak, just terribly weak. But, and I don't know how you would evolve to be that way naturally, but anyways, the rest of them, they can just tear a lion to pieces, no problem. There's very few creatures that can threaten them. And they've got a body structure that's different than ours and is so advantageous, and their brains are so fast. Monkeys can sit there and play games with jaguars that want to eat them, and, you know, sit there and tap them on the butts and take that risk, because they're that good, they're that fast. And most of us know how much infinitely faster than a human cats are. So if primates like Sasquatch and chimpanzees and gorillas, which we know are that much faster than us, and they would have to be, it makes sense. Whether you're running or you're swinging through the trees in the forest, in order to not get blinded by a stick. Let's OTVO, hey buddy, good to see you. I am going to mod you up, and that is so. Okay, I'm going to mark in my brain where I was talking, but add as a moderator, and that's so that you can go around and everyone can go around with you, and you can subscribe to everyone. Raya Hoot, hey buddy, okay, you get a mod too. Go around to everyone. Korea Donna, oh wow, all my friends are showing up tonight. Okay, all of you go around and make sure and hook up with everyone else. Is retirement, I feel like I should know retirement days. I'm gonna wait just a minute. Musical mindset. I'm gonna wait just a minute and see if you're still here. If you're still here, let me know. I'll probably mod you. I think I just modded Let's, didn't I? Yes. So everyone that I just modded, that's not so you can. Oh, Chevy. I just uploaded a short for Bad Mantis Chevy to try to pump up your viewership of that song. That song's too good to be ignored. Or to be unseen. So yes, all of you who just got modded, please again go around to everyone else that you see in the chat. Just click on their name. It says go to their channel. You go to their channel, leave them a comment under a short saying, hey, I was here. I'm at WassamattaU's live with you. Fascinating, enthralling live with you right now. And I'm going to go back there, but I just stopped. I'm just saying hello, letting you know I subscribe to you, and I'll be back to check out more of your content later. Whatever you want to say, or, you know, whatever. And hopefully they will return the favor. And everybody, please return the favor if people come and subscribe to you. Okay, so I was talking about that there are no hominins in Australia. There never have been, and the advantages. Oh yeah, that's a highly advantageous form, and that's why that was created that way. And it's probably one of the reasons why we ended up with all these hominins all over the planet that had to be wiped out by the flood. Although in the Sumerian story, they were basically tinkering around and making all these different things. Now, another interesting thing that they did is the Sumerian working class, who was doing the gold mining here, if I didn't mention before, they were on this planet too, according to the story, to mine gold to fix the atmosphere of their planet, which they had damaged with their industry. Pretty advanced concepts for the first civilization and the first people to invent writing, supposedly. Makes you wonder how they thought of this stuff. Anyways, so they were here to mine gold for that purpose. Now their workers, initially they had mined the Tigris-Euphrates area, and there they just used, I guess what's called sluice mining. They just kind of set the thing in the water. The river does all the work for you, comes along and deposits the gold there for you. It's low labor intensive comparatively. But once they had tapped out that, which was at the time the largest gold supply on the planet, they moved to where the next biggest supply was, and still is to this day, South Africa. However, in South Africa, you have to dig down hundreds of feet to get to the gold, and it's grueling, nasty work. And the Anunnaki working class, who were not acclimated to this planet, probably in the same, them being what was crossed with the hominin, is why we have the weaknesses that we have, why we have to cook the food, boil the water before we drink it, why we can't survive on this planet without clothing or shelter. Most of us can't. Those of us with dark skin might be able to make it to the equatorial regions and survive without clothing or shelter, although even people who live in those areas generally have some kind of shelter and a little bit of clothing, and even if they could, but most of us, we couldn't survive not even 2 weeks. Most of us are going to be dead if you make us live like every other species of animal, without our shelter and our clothing and all that, and without fire. Although the hominins did apparently use fire for a long time and still can, and occasionally do, but they generally don't. But let's see. Boy, I managed to get off track there. So I'm gonna go back to I've covered. Let's see here. I'm sorry to do this. This is very unprofessional of me. I let myself get sidetracked there. Oh yeah. So the weakness of the human form and the advantageous. Oh, the flood. So. Yeah, the Sumerian story is quite a bit different, and it's full of concepts that, a flying ship, DNA, that's where the double helix comes from. Pretty much when the Sumerian civilization popped up, they just popped up out of nowhere as well, just like humans kind of just appeared on the planet. The Sumerians just appeared to just pop up out of nowhere, having hundreds and hundreds of the firsts of civilization, and of agriculture and all kinds of, and of writing, etc., etc. And they don't, unlike most places where the victors or the rulers get to record history, and they like to say things like, well, then myself, King blah blah blah, thought of this ingenious to attack these people, or to build this sewer system, or to do whatever, or my brother thought, my genius brother made all these libraries, or just whatever. The Sumerians, they don't do any of that. They don't take credit for any of these fantastic developments that they apparently came up with out of nowhere, as if crawling around on their hands and knees in caves one minute, and then suddenly having the first major civilization with full-on plumbing in the city. Not just agricultural, you know, watering systems, but actual in the city plumbing, and just hundreds and hundreds of the first, the law that they, the main, and I'm having brain farts right now, but the main legal doctrine that the Sumerians came up with 6,000 years ago is word for word the underlying doctrine of our law in the United States today. And what I was saying is they didn't take credit for any of these advancements, unlike rulers of other places and history recorders of other places. They attributed everything to the gods giving it to them. They took credit for none of it. So how they came up with this fantastic story, how they knew, did anyone look up to see whether the Hubble telescope was in 1971 or 1991? I meant to do that and I didn't, but how they knew that Uranus and Neptune were blue-green watery twins, how they had, if you look at the Sumerian pictograph, so those pictographs were carved onto little cylinder seals. The image had to be carved in reverse so that when you laid the cylinder seal down and rolled it across a flat piece of clay to make the indentations, that the image would be correct in our vision. If it wasn't in reverse on the cylinder seal, it would look in reverse on the clay when you rolled it out. So no one knows. These cylinder seals are so small and they're made of the hardest, like lucite granite. Nobody knows how they could have possibly carved these things so finely and intricately and correctly in reverse. But one of the oldest Sumerian pictographs, about 15% of all of the Sumerian tablets that have survived that we have, and cylinder seals that have survived that we have to read, about 15% of it is, quote, mythology or religious stuff. The rest of it is mostly lists and lists of things. Some of it's like lists of kings, but a lot of it's just lists of rice on a year, or how much the kingdom traded to this other group, or how much they were paid in tribute by some surrounding group of people or whatever. Most of it's just that kind of thing, or we traded this many pigs for this many sheep, etc., or this year the rainfall was, you know, the XYZ. They recorded all kinds of stuff. And then about 15% of it is religious texts or mythological stuff, how you want to think of it. Hey, there's a bunny. See, these are the bunnies that are attracting these coyotes up here. I'm going to show you really quick if I can get my flashlight out on time. Okay. Look at this. And these bunnies, I've probably been walking past a whole bunch of them. They're all over the darn place. The darn place. Okay. See him there? I don't know if you can. He's right. He's gonna hop here as I move along. Well, maybe he's not gonna hop. You see him sitting right there? He's cuter than a bug in a rug, aren't you, buddy? Oh, there he goes. Okay, so it's these big, juicy, fat cottontails. They would make a great meal for a coyote, I'm sure. Coyote would just dig that. And they're all over the place, these darn rabbits. They have just moved into the neighborhoods in force. And so I don't even chase the coyotes off usually, because otherwise these rabbits are just eating all of our gardens. It's kind of ridiculous. They will go, they say, you know, put them in a raised, you know, thing that's like a foot off the ground. That doesn't stop them. They hop, for goodness sake. Whatever. So yeah, so the Sumerians pictographs, they're about 15% of their cylinder seals that we've recovered, and their clay tablets that they use cylinder seals to create are mythological, religious texts. The rest are just inventory and whatnot. And out of those 15%, that's still a lot, because we have rooms and rooms and rooms full of these things that we've found and recovered. And one of the main, most famous images is the image of man receiving the plowshare. From, you can tell the Anunnaki that are in the image because they're larger than the humans in the image, and they have these particular type of helmets on them, and they're much larger. They look like humans but much larger. What am I looking at here? Oh, it's the light. I'm sorry, guys. And so in that image, the most phenomenal thing about that's the image of the man receiving the plowshare from the Anunnaki. Just like they didn't take credit for anything that they did, any of the advancements they made, they received it all from the gods. This is them receiving the plowshare, and it's the same kind of plowshare that can be found today in third world countries, like the most primitive one that the man has to push or is pulled forward by an oxen or other beast of burden while the man steers it and it digs into the ground, that kind of a plowshare. But in the background of this image is a depiction of the solar system with all 10 planets. They considered our moon to be a planet. And if you think about that, you know, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn and all these other, even the moons of Mars, they're just like 1/200th or 1/250th of the size of the planet, or less in some cases. Our moon is a quarter of the size of our planet. There's no other moon like it in the solar system, and the moon is a whole nother subject that I can go into the weirdness and whatnot of, but I won't right now. But I will in a coming up live stream, I promise. Shortly coming up one. But so they considered the moon to be a planet, and that the Earth and the moon had a planet rather than a planet-moon relationship. So they have the depiction of the 10 planets, as they saw it, of our solar system, including Pluto. And not only are they depicted around our sun, but they're in their relative orbits and sizes correctly, which we didn't know in Western science, that there were that many planets until, you know, we didn't find out about Uranus and Neptune until like 1870. We didn't find out about Pluto until 1910 or something like that. And we certainly didn't know the color, as I mentioned the other day, of Uranus and Neptune. Oh gosh, don't do the buffering. So that's how they ordered them, interestingly, as what you would think of being somewhat maybe someone who entered our solar system from outside of it would choose to number them, Earth or whatever. Let's see, yeah. And so they have this depiction, whereas Western science, we didn't even know this till just barely over 100 years ago, this stuff, but they knew it. They had it all. They had all the planets there in their correct orbits and relative sizes, and they had names for them, their colors, blah blah blah. And I could literally continue on half the night listing things like that they knew about and were correct about, and things that modern science, whether it be DNA science or advances in astrology because of new telescopes, or advances in human bioscience, etc., etc. Every bit of new information that comes out that can be applied to as a check against what the Sumerians said, it always clicks with what they said. So far, there's been nothing that's been a glaring like, oh, well, frick, they were wrong about that. You just can't point to anything like that. And yet you can point to, you know, like I said, I can go on half the night listing these things like this that they knew, apparently, somehow. And again, they don't take credit. How did they know this without telescopes, for example? Like, it's pretty hard to imagine. And while they call the Anunnaki gods, they have a sense that it may be that that's one of a mistranslation, because they have a sense, they talk about a larger god, a creator. The Anunnaki mention the creator a few times in various obscure places to just the Sumerians themselves. So they have a good sense that these beings that rule over them, these Anunnaki, are not gods in the sense that they're not the makers of creation. However, their intelligence and technology is so far advanced to ours that, you know, for all intents and purposes, what they do would look like magic and magical type terms. Other than where they were given other terms by the end on how to talk about these things, they're going to have to use magical like terms to describe them. But yeah, I can literally go on listing things like that. That it's just it makes it hard to discount their story for a rational, reasonable person. And I suspect that as more scientific advancements occur in the near future, if we watch them closely, we'll continue to see things that the Sumerians said verified, and almost nothing that they said discounted, solidly discounted. And so, yeah, if you're not putting the pieces all together, you've got the Sumerians coming down to mine gold, and they've created us as a slave to do that job. I guess I didn't quite finish with the Anunnaki workers. So as the work moved from the sluice mining in the Tigris-Euphrates area down to South Africa, where you have to dig hundreds of feet down and mine the gold out, as that happened, the Anunnaki workers was making them sick. They didn't like it. It was extremely hard work. They weren't acclimated to the planet. And they said, we're not going to do it anymore. They revolted. And the higher caste, or the higher aristocrats of the Anunnaki or whatever, they had a meeting and they said, well, what do we do? Do we wipe these people out, these other Anunnaki out, this working class out because they're disobeying us? What do we do? And fortunately, I guess, depending on how you look at things, cooler heads prevailed, and they decided instead of that, I believe it was one of these working people that suggested, hey, why don't you make us a slave to do this work for us? So they first tried this, interestingly, they first tried making automatons, machines, thinking machines, as the new workers for these mines, which is interesting to think about. Somebody has probably found some of these automatons while digging in South Africa down there in mines. I would just bet my bum on it. Or at least they found other technologies that belong to the Sumerians. All of those things swooped up by the same Fed and Israel and this group of shady people. If they're not even influenced by something that's non-human, I don't know, but whatever the case, they've swooped up. There's too many instances where technology has popped up for a minute and then been swooped up by them to not understand that they've been doing that as a habit and a rule, and they've probably swooped up so many things that we don't even know about, and may never know about. Technologies, free energy, whatever. But it's interesting to imagine them having found one of the automatons, one of the Anunnaki automatons. Now, what happened with those is that they had to be shut down because they darn near, and they almost weren't shut down in time because they turned on the Anunnaki and they became a threat to the existence of the Anunnaki. And basically, the way the story goes, they shut them down pretty much just in time to avoid being conquered by them, or, you know, engaged in an extremely costly conflict at the very least, which who knows what the outcome would have necessarily been. Although the way the story's written, it sounds like they were in grave danger of a species ending event because of their own technology. So at that point they said, we're not doing that again, no more AI, it's too dangerous. This time we're going to make a biological slave. So obviously you all are plenty smart people who can make the association there between their automatons and AI. And I have a song about that touches on that, a song about AI that I think is pretty darn good, if I do say so myself. And it mentions the Anunnaki and their and their automatons as well, turning on them. And so, yeah, they tried that. Then they made us as slaves instead, because their workers were revolting. And so when you're making a slave, as I mentioned the other day, you don't, in order to cut DNA, you can't use a razor blade, you can't use a laser. The only way to cut DNA and splice genes is chemically. And so, and it's not a precise process. It's extremely difficult to chemically cut things precisely. Now, obviously we're getting to a point where we can do some of it well enough to do some interesting things, and they obviously had even greater knowledge. But when you're making a slave race, you don't really care if 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 100,000 is going to have this weird genetic defect that won't even allow it to make it to sexual maturity. And that's where we get all of these weird genetic diseases that we have. And that's where our, quote, junk DNA, there's no such thing as junk DNA. All that stuff has a purpose. It's probably all the genius that you see savants exhibiting. All that, quote, junk DNA in our head is probably just on the other side of a curtain or a blocker of some kind. All that genius that comes out in savants when they get a head injury. Almost certainly it is. There's no such thing. You don't evolve to have junk DNA. That's just preposterous. If you know, I don't know how much you guys all know about DNA and genes and whatnot, but if you have even a cursory knowledge of them, you'll understand that that's just absurd. And so we were created, and those are not our ancestors out there in the wilderness. Those are the ancestors of creatures that are still alive, sharing the planet with us. And that's basically, for all intents and purposes, that's the gist of it all. I can't think of a lot of other details that are extremely important right now for me to go into. I probably will think of some later. I'm going to look at the chat now, see who's here, maybe look for some questions of any kind. That might jumpstart my memory and make me think of something else, other subject that I need to touch basis on. But between these various days that I've spoken about this, I think I've largely covered what's going on. Meaning, everything you thought you knew about reality is wrong. And let me just suggest, for anybody who's really interested in what I've been saying, I borrowed a lot of it from a man named Lloyd Pye. Lloydpye. Now, he's a controversial figure. However, he has a video on YouTube called, and it's just him giving a talk at the front of a room, and it's called Everything You Know Is Wrong. And he touches on a whole lot of this subjects that I've been touching on, and some other ones, and not some things that I've touched on, but I mean, it's just not all gaffled from him or anything, but a good core of it, of the main story, comes from him. And so if you want to go watch that video, I'd highly recommend it. It's called Everything You Know Is Wrong. And you're going to see when you watch that pretty much everything you thought you knew is wrong. At least when it comes to evolution, human evolution, and the reality of what's living on our planet, clearly living on our planet today. So I'm going to go to the chat here. I've got a question for the Steel Man. Why is that going on? Is that just a joke? Touching me, touching you. Hopefully that's just a joke. National security. We are made with false. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit? The atom changes as you progress through school. You mean as you come to learn quantum mechanics? Is that what you're talking about? Hey, Steel Man, hopefully you're still here, buddy. I don't see any reason for anybody to have vehement hatred for anyone else here. I hope not. If so, I guess it's not my business, but whatever. Spaceballs, USA Inc. says. That sounds about right. It wasn't 71. Okay, so it was 91 that the Hubble telescope went up. Boy, I was way off on that one. It doesn't matter though. The point being, we didn't know what color Neptune and Uranus were. We thought every scientist pretty much on the planet who had ever spoken about it that I've ever seen had said they were going to be like Saturn and Jupiter, that they were going to look like them. And they're gas because they should have been right, probably, because doing the calculations, it was clear that these were gas planets like Jupiter, but somehow they've got that blue-green color, and the Sumerians knew this and called them the blue-green watery twins, which they are very much like twins, and they are green. They're not covered in water, obviously, or we don't think so. Most of us don't think so, but you know, that's just a translation of a name. Let's see what we got here. You can't have flyby shootings in the national security and technology, so that you can go around and hook up with everybody. Good to see you, buddy. I just, fortunately, with my long talk, my several days long talk, why human evolution is a myth, and who the so-called pre-human fossil record is really the ancestors of, i.e. Sasquatch, Bigfoot, hominins that still live on our planet today, etc., etc. That's what I just got done with, that you missed. So, how we won't get what we deserve, period. You can't have flyby shootings in the hood. I assume you're answering my question about how average followers are. I'm not quite understanding. That's a bold question. Life under the microscope. LOL. Can you explain to me a little bit? Just like I'm not getting it. I think something there that's kind of tickling my mind, but I'm not quite understanding. Welcome, Fat Cat Fishing. Yes, sir. Welcome, everyone. Welcome all. I hope you guys are all hooked up with each other. There's no excuse for anyone here to not be. Let's see. I made US Inc. Life on the Mic. WassamattaU on my channel. Huh. Oh, Sally Stanley was here. She gets a mod. Hello, Sally Stanley. Sally from the Down Under Valley. If you're still here, Sally, I wonder if you've ever seen or heard my song, Get Back to Work, You Cunts, which is Aussie Nathan. Kind of my had 3 different sections that I couldn't decide between, and I ended up just deciding to include them all into like now. What happened? I'm probably losing everybody when that happens. I don't understand that. I have a 5G phone. I'm out here on the street. Why would that happen? Okay, so anyways, I ended my talk about Relic, Hominins, Sasquatch, myth of human evolution. I'm just looking for any questions out there that anyone has right now, to possibly jog my memory for anything that I have forgotten to talk about or include. Probably my next live stream will be about the moon, or it'll be about a legal issue, including possibly case law or auditors. I might be out here just talking trash about a few auditors. No. Even though there are a couple I'd like to talk trash about, but I generally, unless it's a friend of mine that I'm having some kind of debate with and talking to or whatever, I'll generally try my best to say nothing if I have nothing nice to say. I'll try my best. I try to live that way. It's hard sometimes. There's some people out there who are just really doing wrong. And I guess it's not bad to call people out that you think are doing something that's really wrong and harmful to the community, to the nation. I mean, I don't see why we should be squeamish about saying, hey bro, the way that you're going about things is causing people harm. And now then, once you put that out, the viewers decide, is this person correct, or are they with it, you know, whatever. And if you're going to make a judgment like that and you're way off, people are probably not going to look too kindly on you. So it could be a double-edged sword. But I guess I just want to right now make the statement that I am not going to hold back something if I think someone's doing something wrong, At the same time, I'm not just going to try to come out and talk smack for no reason about somebody. So it's kind of a fine balance. It's a fine balance. So still no questions, huh? Make sure to sub to the USA Inc. channel. We are going to start doing all political and government situations over there. That's true. Everyone, please be sure to subscribe. Who built the pyramids? I don't know the answer to that in all immunity. I really wish I did. Obviously, they weren't built in a 20-year period by the pharaoh that mainstream science, lamestream science, wants to claim that they were built by. Are clearly far older than that, and they're not tombs. Figured out what they are. They're giant free energy machines, possibly landing pads for ships, landing and recharging stations for ships, but at the very least they are free energy machines. They never were tombs. Their design is perfect, where if you add red mercury, I don't know all the details of it, but basically the way that the little shafts go out and everything is all perfect to make a free energy machine, a giant working free energy machine. So that's all I can tell you about the pyramids. They're much older than mainstream science has doggedly clung to claiming they are. And you got to imagine this. If every country in the world today got together and pooled our resources, we could not build the Great Pyramid in 20 years together, period. Not without inventing some kind of new technology right away, because even with the 13 largest cranes that exist on the planet today, we can't even move one of some of the rocks that are at in the base of the pyramid, at the foundation of the pyramid. There are stones that are so large. If any of you have never seen the pregnant stone quote, which you can see, it's in a quarry still sitting there. Basically, they were carving it out, and somebody cracked it. It's got machine marks all over it. Like, clearly they were just kind of just half sloppily cutting these gigantic rocks out with some kind of technology, and somebody pressed a little too hard and the pregnant stone cracked and broke, and they didn't stress over it. They said, oh, okay, well, we'll just leave this one sitting here and we'll move on over here and cut a new one. And that's what they did. Now, if you look at an image of people standing on the pregnant stone just out on the tip of it, they look like ants. It's how big this stone is. It's humongous. And somehow they were very confident, obviously, that not only were they going to be able to move it over to the Giza Plateau when they were done carving it out, obviously they were confident of that, but they also just confident of being able to cut it out of the quarry when they were done. Because you got to imagine, if it's done the way that mainstream science wants to say it's done, with stone, basically rocks in people's hands that they're using to chip away a much harder type of rock, to quarry these things out, which doesn't even make sense, and copper tools which are so soft they wouldn't even last for 2 seconds. If that's really the way that these things are being done, well, then somebody's got to get underneath that thing and cut. There's a spine on the bottom of a stone like that. All along the bottom of it, there's a spine that it ends up sitting on, that they finally cut it free from and then lift it out of the quarry. Somebody's got to get under there and cut that spine, and you can't do it with a saw, because the amount of weight on top of you pressing down is going to pinch and stop any blade. Maybe if you had a high pressure water cutting system, or I believe they had some kind of sound technology that they were able to soften rock with and make it lightweight, and possibly even where it's anti-gravitational. But at the very least, they made it much lighter of weight and more malleable. That's pretty clear. But yeah, if it was done the lamestream science explanation way, then somebody's got to get underneath that thing and cut that free. How they would manage that, no one can really even propose anything that makes any sense. And they're probably not going to live through it, whoever you talk into going down there.
So yeah, it just, they not only were they confident they were going to be able to move this stone, but they were confident that they were going to be able to cut it out of the quarry. And in fact, there's an even larger one like it underneath the pregnant stone, which I think it's a similar thing where they cracked it or whatever and just moved on. So that being said, there are stones that are about that size in the base of the pyramid, as well as above the king's chamber. There are huge stones, maybe not quite as big as a pregnant stone, but far too big for even all the cranes together, the largest cranes that we have, the 13 largest cranes on Earth, to even lift out of the quarry, let alone then move hundreds of miles from where they are quarried to the Giza Plateau. We couldn't do it today. And the way that the pyramid is, it's created of over 2 million blocks, and all of those blocks go in the spot that they're in. They're not just 2 million blocks, you get them there and then you just stack it how it's looking good and works out. No, it's all precise. Each block is cut to a precise measurement so that it fits in a certain way into the overall configuration. And it was all planned ahead of time, and the rocks were cut to the correct size, and then the thing was constructed. We couldn't do that today. No way. Especially not in 20 years. Not without, again, inventing some serious new technologies or releasing some. Anybody who tells you differently is just lying to you. So that's how impressive, when I was in classes, and I believed this for a long time to my shame. I believed that she had told me the truth, or told us the truth, that the pyramids, quote, were not that impressive because they were just a pile of rock. If they were hollow, then they would be impressive, she said. Well, first of all, she clearly either was lying or didn't have an understanding of what the function of the pyramid was and why it needs to be designed like it is and couldn't be hollow. They probably, considering the impressive building skills these people had, they probably could have made it hollow if they wanted to. But whatever the case, yeah, even if as a pile, quote, pile of rocks, it's still far more impressive than we could never do it today. Not with if all the world's nations got together and pooled our resources, not without, again, making a major breakthrough and inventing some kind of new technologies. Not with the equipment and know-how that we have right now. No way, no how. Not even close. You couldn't even get close. We could barely even start the project. That's how crazy it is. And then you got to realize, well, it's a lot older than what they said, and certainly even with all these millions of farmers conscripted to work in the off season supposedly on the pyramids, it still doesn't add up. You'd have to place a block with those 2 million blocks plus blocks. You'd have to place a block. You'd have to cut, move, and place a block something like every 3.5 seconds, or even if it's a half a minute or an hour. Even if it's every 6 hours, that's still, whatever it is. And I believe it's much more impressive than that. But yeah, the rate at which you'd have to be building to build this in 20 years, it just didn't happen that way. Or if it did, they used technologies that are beyond, very well may have happened that way actually, but if so, they used technologies that are far beyond anything that we've been told about by people who have gone down there and truly done the research and kept it top secret, I'm sure, and truly grabbed up any remaining technology that was left in the pyramids. You can see the images of these little purses. You see it in South America, you see it in the Sumerians, you see it in the Egyptians. The gods carry what look like little purses. And there's also images of these cones, these cone-shaped things that appear to be morphing rock and possibly levitating rock and possibly cutting it. But so somebody's probably found some of these little cone-shaped things somewhere. Certainly there was a man in Florida who built the Coral Castle. He did it all by himself. he had these humongous, tons and tons and tons weighing chunks of coral dropped off, and he made this coral castle. A woman that he was in love with and supposed to marry had just left him. And so he went a little nuts and he made this coral castle for her. The door of this thing is some number of tons, and a child can push it with their pinky finger and it will spin. And this guy, he put together this whole coral castle. If you're not familiar with it, Google it and look it up. He did all the cutting of the stones and placing of the stones, and the creation of the door, and the lifting that door up, that stone that makes up the door, that's like 15 feet thick and like 25 feet wide and 25 feet tall, and you can just push it with your pinky finger and it'll spin. He did all of that behind like large curtains and hidden basically from the view of the public, and he did it all by himself with no help. So clearly he said that he had figured out technology that they built the pyramids with. The only clue we have are photographs of what looked like a triangular shaped device about as tall as a regular standard city telephone pole, maybe a little bit shorter, and it has a small box. These three poles come together in a tripod, and underneath that is a small box, a mysterious small box, and that appears to be related to how he moved and these large chunks of coral. I don't know, look into it yourself, you'll see. But whatever the case, when he passed away, somebody swooped in there and his technology, and it's disappeared. No one's talked about it since. No one's done it since. It's too bad. If we only had some secret writings by this guy, or had his whatever he used, because despite doing it out of sight, unless he used magic, you know, clearly he had figured out this technology, some aspect of this technology at the very least, that they built the pyramids with. So someone out there has it, and if we use that, maybe we could replicate building the pyramid, but otherwise not with the standard, not with the most high-tech AI brain run, even standard technologies and methods that we have today that are not secret. We couldn't do it. So that's a long answer to that. I don't know who built the pyramids. I would guess that it was at least extraterrestrial or extra dimensional, or possibly a very intelligent species that lives under the ground. Whatever the case, technology left over from Atlantis or whatever, something like that. One of those many options that this technology that built the pyramids came from. And it's probably the case that the pyramids were around when Atlantis was around. Who knows? So maybe, I don't know. But if not, they would have been built fairly shortly after the disaster, because there's not a lot of other time frame in there for them to have been built. And yeah, I think if not built by extraterrestrials, extra dimensionals, with their technology, or with Indian technology, which who knows where that came from. But that clearly, you know, we can see not just the pyramids on Giza, but the pyramids of South America, but also North American pyramids and North American stone structures and structures in the Eurasian continent, way off by Japan and in Siberia. And basically, it's clear that at some point after the disaster, whatever it was, 10, 12,000 years ago, near the end of the last ice age, the flood, that there was surviving technology from this destroyed civilization, super advanced civilization. There was some of that survived, and the people that had it, they spread out. For whatever reason, they went flying to all corners of the earth. Not flying necessarily, they might have been on boats or whatever, but they traveled to all corners of the earth, where they proceeded to create, to make of stone creations that we can't do today. There are stone things in North America that are made of slabs so big we can't really, imagine moving them, et cetera, et cetera. But then over time, it's clear that over generations, they begun to quickly lose this technology, or whatever tools they had ran out of power, juice, or they just forgot how to use them or something. Because as time goes by, you go from the most crazy advanced stonework with the largest pieces, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller till down to little rocks stacked together with mortar put between them. Remembering that there's no mortar in the pyramid or any of these other ancient stone. They don't use mortar. The stones fit together so perfectly that you can't fit a razor blade between them. So as time goes on, clearly this all over the world where these people landed after the flood, these people with this technology, it degraded whatever generations until you get to the Middle Ages, and then the New World discovery by Europeans, and the type of architecture that we had remaining to us at that time, which is inferior to say the least. Let me see if there's any other questions here. Summer, who's Summer? Summer Ocean Waves, you get to be modded. Hey, buddy. Summer's great. Okay. And you've been made a moderator, obviously, so you can go around and hook up with everybody. I think you already know this way that we do things. Kimmy Ox Secret. What magic technology? Well, I don't know if I said magic technology. If I did, what I meant was whatever it is, it appears magic to us because we don't understand it. Whether it's something that, I mean, then it would come to how do you define magic, you know? For example, a dolphin's ability to knock fish out at a distance without touching them, that would appear like magic to a lot of people until we just came to understand sonar. And so there's all kinds of examples you can point to like that, but it's not really magic, is it? Now that we have this, understand the science. So it could be situations like that, or it could be maybe they are just straight magic where someone uses a spell and puts something on an ordinary rock and turns it into a crazy tool that can, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. My intuition would be that these are just extremely advanced sciences that we haven't figured out in Western society or as humans at this point. That would be my intuition, my guess, and not that they're just something that a magic spell causes, a spoken spell, or mixed frog legs with hair of a toad, or whatever, or anything like that, and bat's feet or whatever mixed together would cause. I don't think that that's the case, but I don't know. So if I said magic technology, that's what I meant by that. They clearly, you can see it on the pregnant stone. If you go take a look at it, you can see these big swirly tool marks on it. Like, it's clear that someone had a very large power tool that they were using, and they were doing it kind of sloppy, and they just pressed too hard and cracked the thing, and they didn't hesitate. They didn't say, oh, all this work, we've got this thing mostly carved out and blah blah blah. It clearly didn't take them a million enslaved farmers with rocks to cut this thing out over decades or centuries. They clearly just did it real quick, and they didn't care when they cracked it, and they just moved on. And again, they clearly had the full confidence that they were going to pull this thing out of the ground, move it hundreds of miles. They clearly had no doubt of that. And there are larger ones that have now been located there, including underneath the pregnant stone and in another spot, as well as ones where these monoliths have been removed, cut out, and taken away, and are probably in the middle of the pyramid or sitting under the Parthenon or whatever, anywhere where you find these just humongous block. They're like the width of a city side street and the length of half of a city block. City, like, an urban neighborhood block. They're basically like half the length of that street and the full width of it. It's incredible how big these things are, that they were just clearly, actually bigger than that even. Look at the pregnant stone. Go look at it if you haven't seen it. clearly, hundreds of thousands of tons was not daunting to them. They had to have had there's no technology that we can even visualize or theorize right now, whether that be like digging canals and trying to float. No, it wouldn't work. Rolling it on wooden rollers, logs, nope, wouldn't work. Too much weight. It would smash anything that you put under there to roll. So clearly they had some kind of technology that would appear magic to us today that they were using to cut these things and move them. There's no other conclusion that's sane. Any other conclusion is to the contrary and trying to explain it with rolling logs and carving out these things using rock hammers of a stone that's not even as hard as the stone that they're cutting, as well as copper tools that are so soft they're a joke. All that kind of reaching for an explanation. It's really a form of insanity. It's a form of stubborn insanity. Basically, just like I was talking about yesterday, these folks who buy into that, they're either intellectually lazy, or in more cases, it's just a matter of they've pre-decided what can and can't be and what must and must not be. And then they attribute a whole lot of weight to that decision. So they say, this cannot be, this can be, just like it's similar to there can't be, Sasquatch can't be real, starting with that, or Dogman's definitely can't be real, even if maybe Sasquatch, anything like that, where you don't actually have that information, but you're ascribing a great deal of weight to that as if it were legitimate information that you had to begin with. That's kind of a form of insanity. It's definitely a human flaw that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know. I'm gonna look here again and see if there's any more questions or anything that I should be getting to that. Hey, John P. Oh yes, John P. Your song is coming. It's next up. I'm working on an XXGOX song right now. Yours is right in the line after that. It's actually already made. I just have to make a video for it. I might actually tinker around with a couple of other versions of it just to see. I know you like that reggae. So what I did is I used different combinations of music along with I know you are, but I'm just telling you. I used different combinations of music genres along with the reggae. And I even did a little bit of research for what works with that and whatnot. And I think I came up with some good stuff, but I still might tinker around a little bit. But yeah, the straight reggae, oh boy. I know you love it, buddy, and I love you, but I think I've made something better, or at least better in my ears. Let's see here. Life under the microphone. I know John P, by the way, he's somebody who watches a lot of information about UFOs and whatnot, so he's a knowledgeable person. Take your N-teen, please. Oh, take your time, please. Oh yeah, don't worry, buddy. I'm not taking any. I'm not. I know you're joking. I'm not taking it as like a rush or anything. I gotcha. So spin with no water as the hydrogen is in the air and is vortexed in. Did you see the photo of alien? Which photo is that? I've seen a lot of photos of aliens. Is this a new one there, John? Let's see. Everything spins into and out of creation here. It makes things easier to figure out. That's an interesting theory. I could see what you mean by that. Not without water to soften it. Copper cuts limestone easy. Yeah, limestone. But we're talking the hardest granite that the pregnant stone is made out of. And these quarries, the rocks that are coming out of these quarries are literally pink granite. Like, they are on the highest. There's a hardness scale for stones. They're like at one of the highest possible. They're right up there. Limestone, yeah, you could cut limestone. And yeah, the pyramids were cased in limestone on the very outside, just a layer of it, so that they would gleam white in the sun. But under that, it's all this pink granite, this incredibly hard stone. All those blocks are heavy, extremely hard stone. Let's see here. but it did work. They used wooden logs to roll them on. It was proven on Expedition Unknown. No, I'm sorry, Jeff. They did not prove that. You couldn't. They didn't prove that they could roll a stone the size of a pregnant stone on any type of wooden rollers, because I guarantee you, you could have all the trees in the world at your disposal as rolling logs and put them underneath the pregnant stone, and it would grind them all into oblivion. It's so heavy. I shouldn't say all in the world, but I'm saying even if you had the biggest rolling logs possible that you could find in hardwood trees around the planet, and you laid out enough of them for this to fit underneath the pregnant stone, and then you tried to roll it onto them, it would crush them all. That's how heavy it is. It would crush them all into tiny dust. So they did not. I know what you're talking about, and they've done some interesting things on shows like that, like Walk the Heads from Easter Island with just a limited number of people and stuff like that. However, there are elements of the ancient monoliths that get into the realm of ridiculous when you try to continue to use explanations like that to explain their cutting and their moving. It's just not true. It just can't be done. Let's see here. Your community tab, clay impermeable. Did you see photo of alien? Which photo of alien, John? Oh, on your community tab? Okay, I gotcha. Give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I will move the world. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. You need a lever that's not only long enough, but is strong enough. And where are you going to get that? There's no conceivable metal that would be strong enough for someone with a lever to move a planet. I don't know. I mean, unless you had a lever that was... Yeah, I guess if you had a lever that was wide and big enough, I mean, it would have to be almost as big as the planet, probably, to be able to move a weight that size. Let's see here. Clay impermeable. Clay impermeable. I'm not sure what that means. I know there is layers of clay down under the ground that water will not permeate. Let's see here. I'm going back in the list here. Copper cuts limestone. Okay, all right, so water is 100%, as they have said. The Sahara was a vast wetland. That's right. The Sahara was a vast wetland, and you know what made it into the desert that it is today, for the most part? Human agriculture, namely corn. Growing corn, which is an incredibly environmentally destructive crop to grow in large amounts. Let's see here. I only need two things: time and pressure. I can make it fit anywhere. Okay, yeah, funny there. Let's see. Do it for Biff story. Wrong channel. Limestone easily cut with water and a chisel. Limestone, yes. Milk told me otherwise the other day. Magical, watertight bottle. Squirrel's going to be racing at least 3 races this year in Arca. Okay, so I don't see any more questions that are of real urgency here that anyone was asking. Kimmock's secret. LOL. I flipped through channels to hear different words from different people to make a funny sentence. Anyone else do that? No, Kim, I don't. But it sounds like a fun activity. Flip through to make different words from different people. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. Yeah, I don't see any more. So I'm going to, I guess, say goodbye here shortly, as I don't see any more questions or objections. What is the correlation between the Egyptians and Inca pyramids? Well, you know, you can kind of see an evolution on both sides of the ocean of pyramids. So to some extent, there are similarities, and similarities in the way that the blocks were cut and the size of blocks were moved and whatnot. However, you can see the evolution of pyramids on both sides of the ocean. So to some extent, it was not a shared technology and not a related technology. It may be that a pyramid or a ziggurat starting at a ziggurat is just an extremely likely choice for to make a large monolith out of. I'm not sure. And it is, again, it's clear that there was some spreading of attack would have needed that we can't quite match or understand across the oceans. But it seems to just be have been very few people with a little bit of this technology and going there. You know, if you look at like the stonework of the Incas, for example, what's there that's most recent before the arrival of the Europeans is basically crappy rocks stacked together with gravel or mortar in between them that looks like hell, stacked on top of the much older, larger blocks that have no mortar. They're just so tightly fit together that you can't stick a razor blade or a piece of paper between them. And the technology and the work is much finer, and the blocks are much, much larger. It's made of much larger blocks rather than little blocks with mortar. So that's what was going on in South America when the Europeans arrived, is that they had lost the ability to build. They weren't advancing. And same thing in Egypt. You know, just like we couldn't build the pyramids today, by the time you start getting into the main power of Egypt, they were no longer, as far as I can know, they were no longer building things of the same size, with the same size, large rocks and whatnot. I'm pretty sure that was mostly over by the time of their main rise of power. Or, I mean, at least is how we figure about it with what we're told by Western science about the history. So, who knows? It may be that they had, there was a much more powerful, larger civilization going on there. Maybe Egypt was Atlantis, and it just fell apart or whatever, and then it became Egypt. Who knows? But yeah, there may been a time where they were more prosperous and had a larger empire, and they were building these larger stone monuments. But by the time you get into the Herodotus, ancient Greek civilization time of history, and then the Romans, they definitely were no longer building anything of the sort at that time. Let's see here. Any more questions? I've been in King Tut's tomb. Have you really? That's freaking fascinating. And how much stuff had they left in there? Did they leave a lot of stuff in there? Or because I thought it was mostly all removed for museums. So were you just there looking at the art on the walls, or did they have some of the artifacts back put in there, or what was that like? I'm cursed. Yeah, I wouldn't, you know, I would be hesitant, you know, as skeptical as I am in general of things like that working, you know, that magic actually working. There's all kinds of weird, you know, they could have put viruses in there that are dormant and then come, you know, who knows how they could make these curses. There's all kinds of weird technologies that they might have had that they could use. And yeah, I would be reticent to invade a tomb, King Tut's tomb or any other tomb. Myself, I would. And there have been, I don't know if it's all stories, fiction or not, but there have definitely been some odd accounts of what have happened to the people who opened some of these tombs, where it's like, you know, 30 of the people who were there were dead in a certain number of years, and that's probably an exaggeration or whatever, but there's definitely been a certain amount of, whether it was caused by a psychosomatic belief, or, you know, because we do tend to create reality with our beliefs, or whether it was you know, regardless of how it happened, it does appear that some very weird things like that have happened, and I would have been reticent myself to go into King Tut's tomb. You're a brave man. Let's see. Hello, Brandon. Brandon F. and Mitchell, is he back here? Okay, I guess I'm gonna... Oh, there's, John P. is still here. Yeah, everyone make sure and get over to John P. and check out his stuff. He does a lot of great things for people here on YouTube, helping channels out to get started. So if you're having issues with that, it's a good place to visit in order to meet other people and get subscribers and see what other subscribers are doing to get ideas, etc., so that you can subscribe to people while you're at his channel. And he's got a lot of fascinating content himself, a lot of great content. And John P loves everybody. He loves you. He loves me. That's what my song's about. So yeah, he's a great guy. Get over there, make sure and check out his channel. It'll be beneficial to you if you're trying to start a channel or increase traffic to your channel or increase your subscribers, etc. And it's just a fun place as well, and it's a good community. And same thing with Just a Yogi and Daisy May, who are people that may have popped in here at various times. They're busy people, but they probably popped in here at different times to leave little hellos and whatnot for people. But John P, he's the big daddy. He's the big boss daddy, the godfather of that type of new community. If you show yourself at all real and trustworthy, so that you can use the stream, the connections to your advantage, and we can all, kind of make friends and help each other, because that's a great way to go about life, making parallel, as Michael Eline likes to talk about it, parallel systems, and just practicing kindness, basically. And again, it's to your advantage as well. You can get more subscribers, you can get more interest in your content, you can get ideas, etc. Let's see here. I wish I gonna have a big man of you go logging in the cult, Mr. Steve Mira. You mean as a guest? Yeah, everybody make sure and check out John P's channel. He's got all kinds of interesting stuff. Mr. Steve Mira. Okay, I'm not familiar with that name, but I will look for that in your upcoming videos. Jeff, his name is Jeff. There's a song, John P. If you want to see more of what my songs are like than what you've seen, I know you've been gracious enough to visit a lot of my videos, but one of my cooler, funner songs, I think, is called "My Name is Jeff," that I wrote for Jeff there. I just wrote a comment to him one day that turned into lyrics, and it's a fun song. I'm going to end this live stream, I think, now, because I don't see any more questions or anything like that. We're losing viewers quickly. Everyone have a good night, and thank you for joining me. I appreciate it very, very much. Think of any questions that you have for the next live stream, although I'll probably be moving on to another subject, but I will answer any lingering questions and cover anything that I think of that I may have forgotten as far as the current topic. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. WassamattaU loves you all. Good night, everyone. Be kind to each other. Forgive others for your own benefit, not for their benefit. Have a good night. Success to all of you. Bye, End All Immunity. Bye, Life Under the Microphone. Bye, Jeff. Bye, Ryan Labs. Bye, USA Inc. Bye, John P. Y'all are the best.